So there I was, Marcus Kane, sitting in the armpit of the galaxy also known as Nexus Station 7, watching my bank account drain faster than a punctured fuel tank. My cargo hauler, the Sweet Revenge, had decided to blow its hyperdrive motivator right in the middle of nowhere, which meant I was stuck paying station docking fees while mechanics charged me prices that would make a Ferengi weep. I was down to my last military ration pack, the kind they give to soldiers who apparently hate themselves, when I noticed her. Small alien kid, maybe 7 or 8 and whatever passes for years in her species, digging through the garbage near the food court like she was mining for gold. She had these big purple eyes and skin that looked like it was dusted with silver glitter, which would have been cute if she wasn't obviously starving. Now, I'm not usually the bleeding heart type. 20 years of hauling cargo across the outer rim teaches you to mind your own business. But watching this kid try to eat what looked like moldy bread substitute while elegant alien families walked past without a second glance, that hit different. "Hey kid," I called out, waving my ration pack. She looked up with those enormous eyes, probably wondering if the weird human was about to chase her away like everyone else. She approached cautiously, like a stray cat deciding whether the food is worth the risk. "You give?" she asked in broken standard English, pointing at the meal pack with a tiny clawed finger. "Yeah, I give. You hungry?" Stupid question. She was practically drooling. As she tore into the reconstituted protein and vitamin paste like it was gourmet cuisine, I tried to get her story. Her name was Zira, her mama was gone and she was waiting for family to find her. Classic war orphan situation, I figured. The recent conflicts had left kids scattered across half the galaxy. "Where's your family, sweetheart?" She pointed vaguely toward the docking bays and said something in her own language that sounded like musical chimes mixed with grinding gears. Then she added, "They come soon. Big ships." Right. Every orphan thinks their family is coming in big ships. I pulled out my compad and programmed in my contact info. "Look, if you need help, you call me, okay? Marcus Kane." "Can you say that?" "Marcus Kane," she repeated carefully, then surprised me by hugging my leg before scampering off toward the residential sections. I watched her go, thinking I'd probably never see her again and wondering why I'd just given away my last decent meal to a random alien kid. Must be getting soft in my old age. 6 hours later, I was nursing a synthetic alcohol that tasted like industrial cleaner at Murphy's Cantina, trying to forget about my empty stomach and broken ship. When the first military transport showed up, then the second, then a whole parade of them, sleek and black and bristling with enough weapons to sterilize a small moon. "Holy Mother of hyperspace," Murphy muttered, his 3 eyes glued to the viewport. "Those are Keth'moran warships." The Keth'morans. I'd heard of them. Warrior race, big on honor and tradition, recently signed some kind of peace treaty with the Human Federation. They looked like humanoid cats crossed with medieval knights, assuming medieval knights had retractable claws and could bench press a hover tank. More ships kept arriving. Cruisers, destroyers, something that looked like a mobile space fortress. The station's traffic control was probably having collective aneurysms trying to find docking space for what was starting to look like an entire battle fleet. "This can't be good," I muttered into my drink. That's when the station-wide announcement crackled over the speakers. "Attention all personnel. We are currently hosting a diplomatic mission from the Keth'moran Empire. Please remain calm and avoid any actions that might be construed as hostile. Station security is monitoring all activities." "Diplomatic mission my ass," said a grizzled Centauri trader at the next table. "That's an invasion force if I ever saw one." The cantina was starting to empty as people decided they had urgent business elsewhere. Smart move. I was about to follow their example when my compad chirped with an incoming call from an unknown number. "Marcus Kane." Came a familiar voice, "Family here." "Big ships like I say." "Oh no, oh no 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 no." "Zira? Where are you?" "Docking Bay 7. "You come now." Aunt Thexara want meat food giver. The comm went dead. I stared at the device like it had grown fangs. Docking Bay 7 was where the biggest Keth'moran ship had just berthed. The really big one. The one that probably had Admiral painted on the side in letters the size of shuttlecraft. Murphy, I said slowly, I think I might have accidentally done something incredibly stupid. What else is new? Murphy replied, wiping down a glass with a tentacle. What'd you do this time? I fed a Keth'moran princess military rations. Murphy dropped the glass. All three of his eyes focused on me with laser precision. Marcus, please tell me you're joking. Do I look like I'm in a joking mood? Outside the viewport, more ships were arriving. I counted at least 30 vessels now, ranging from scout ships to what looked like a mobile command center. Either the Keth'morans were really excited about their diplomatic mission, or I had just triggered an interstellar incident by sharing my lunch. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, Murphy's voice following me, Kane. If you start a war, I'm charging you for damages to my establishment. Docking Bay 7 looked like a military parade had collided with a diplomatic reception. Keth'moran soldiers in ceremonial armor were lined up in perfect formation, while officers with enough metals to sink a small asteroid clustered around a figure that could only be Admiral Thexara. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, with silver-streaked fur and eyes that probably saw through lies, deception, and probably my soul. Zira spotted me first and came bounding over like an excited puppy, chattering away in rapid Keth'moran. The Admiral's gaze locked onto me with the intensity of a targeting computer, and suddenly every soldier in the bay was looking my direction. You are the human Marcus Kane, Admiral Thexara said in accented but perfect standard English. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ma, I am. Look, I can explain about the food thing. I didn't know she was. Young Zira has told us of your great kindness, the Admiral interrupted, her voice carrying across the bay like a public announcement. She speaks of the sacred gift you offered without request or expectation. Sacred gift? I glanced at Zira, who was beaming up at me like I'd just rescued her from a burning building instead of sharing a meal pack that tasted like cardboard and regret. It was just food, Ma. The kid was hungry. The Admiral's eyes widened slightly, and she turned to confer with her officers in rapid Keth'moran. Their conversation sounded like a mix of purring and growling, with occasional glances in my direction that made me wonder if I should start running. A smaller officer approached, wearing what looked like a universal translator headset. Admiral Thexara wishes to know if you chose the military ration specifically to honor our warrior traditions. I chose it because it was all I had, I replied honestly. More conferring. More intense staring. The translator looked confused. The Admiral asks why you gave your last food to a stranger child when you clearly had need of it yourself. Because she was hungrier than I was. This was starting to feel like the world's most dangerous job interview. The translator's confusion deepened. He spoke rapidly with the Admiral, who responded with what sounded like several questions. Finally, he turned back to me. Admiral Thexara says your strategic wisdom in building cultural bridges through acts of compassionate strength demonstrates a profound understanding of Keth'moran values. She wishes to know what diplomatic training prepared you for such sophisticated cultural outreach. I blinked. Diplomatic training? Lady, I haul cargo for a living. I gave a hungry kid some food because that's what you do. It's called being a decent person. The translator paused, then spoke at length with the Admiral. Her response was longer and more animated, involving gestures toward me and what looked like respectful bowing from several officers. The Admiral says your humble denial of expertise while demonstrating perfect cultural sensitivity is the mark of a true diplomatic master. She is impressed by humanity's approach of training ambassadors to appear as simple merchants. I am a simple merchant. More translation. More increasingly excited alien conversation. I was starting to feel like I'd wandered into a cosmic comedy of errors where every word I said somehow made me sound more impressive than I actually was. "We will now perform the ritual of honored debt," Admiral Keth'moran announced, and suddenly every Keth'moran in the bay dropped to one knee. "Whoa, hold up," I said, taking a step backward. "What ritual? What debt?" I gave a kid a snack. But they were already chanting something that sounded like a cross between a war song and a funeral dirge. Zira tugged on my jacket and whispered, "Is good thing. Very honor. Warner." The Admiral rose and approached me with what looked like a ceremonial blade. I briefly considered running, but 30 armed aliens had me somewhat surrounded, so I stood there trying to look calm while internally screaming. "In the ancient ways of our people," the Admiral intoned, "to share sustenance with a child of our blood is to accept the sacred duty of protection. You have fed Princess Zira when she was lost and hungry. By our laws, you are now shield brother to the house of Keth'moran." Princess. Of course she was a princess. I couldn't just help a random orphan like a normal person. No, I had to accidentally adopt alien royalty. "Look, Your Admiralness, I appreciate the gesture, but I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," she said firmly, placing the flat of the blade on my shoulder like some kind of knighting ceremony. "You are now General Marcus Kane, shield brother and protector of the royal bloodline. Your wisdom will guide our alliance with humanity." "My wisdom?" "Ma'am. This morning I tried to fix my hyperdrive with a wrench and accidentally electrocuted myself. I have the wisdom of a concussed fruit bat." The translator made that face again, the one that said he was struggling to make my words sound dignified. After another lengthy exchange, he announced, "The Admiral says your self-deprecating humor while accepting great responsibility shows the modesty expected of true leadership." I looked around at the assembled Keth'morans, all of whom were nodding sagely like I'd just delivered the Gettysburg Address instead of comparing myself to brain-damaged wildlife. "This is insane," I muttered. "The General speaks of the beautiful madness of fate," the translator immediately announced. "How poetic. You..." Zira giggled and said something in Keth'moran that made the Admiral smile, which was apparently a rare enough occurrence that several officers looked shocked. "She says Uncle Marcus makes funny faces when he's confused," the translator explained. Uncle Marcus. Great. I'd gone from cargo hauler to alien royalty's honorary relative in the span of one meal pack. This was either the best day of my life or the beginning of a very complicated nightmare. Admiral Keth'moran stepped back and raised her blade in what I hoped was a salute, rather than a preparation for execution. "Welcome to the Keth'moran Empire, General Kane. Your first duty is to attend the feast in your honor." "Feast?" My empty stomach perked up at the word. "To celebrate your elevation and discuss your strategic insights for human-Keth'moran relations." I opened my mouth to explain once again that I didn't have strategic insights, then caught sight of the food being wheeled in by uniformed attendants. Real food. With actual flavor, probably. "You know what?" I said, straightening my jacket. "Let's feast." The feast was barely over when my comm pad started exploding with messages. Apparently news travels fast in a space station, especially when that news involves a random human being declared an alien general in front of half the docking bay. The first call came from Station Administrator Kowalski, who sounded like he was having a very polite, nervous breakdown. "Kane. What the hell did you do? I've got Human Federation diplomats demanding an emergency briefing, 3 news crews asking for interviews, and the Keth'morans requesting permission to establish a permanent embassy." I shared my lunch. I sat around a mouthful of what the Keth'morans called honored beast, but tasted like the best steak I'd ever eaten. "You shared," your Kowalski's voice cracked. "Do you realize you've just become the highest-ranking human in Keth'moran military history?" Before I could explain that this was clearly a misunderstanding of galactic proportions, Admiral Keth'moran approached with another cluster of officers. General Kane, we require your wisdom on trade negotiations. My wisdom on what now? Your people wish to establish shipping routes through Keth'moran space. What terms should we propose? I looked at the expectant faces around me. These were military leaders who commanded fleets and conquered worlds, asking a cargo hauler for advice on interstellar commerce. Well, I said slowly, fair prices, reliable schedules, and don't shoot at the ships carrying your stuff. Those are usually good starts. The officers exchanged glances and began taking notes like I'd just revealed the secrets of the universe. Brilliant, breathed one of them. Such elegant simplicity. My comm pad buzzed again. This time it was Ambassador Rodriguez from the Human Federation Diplomatic Corps, and she sounded frantic. Mr. Kane, I'm en route to Nexus Station with a full negotiation team. Please don't sign anything or agree to any military alliances until we arrive. Too late, I said, watching Zira teach a group of junior officers how to play some kind of alien hopscotch. I'm already a general, apparently. You're what? Also an honorary uncle and a shield brother, whatever that means. The silence on the other end was so complete I thought the connection had died. Ambassador Rodriguez? You there? Mr. Kane, she said in the carefully controlled voice of someone trying not to scream. You may have just accidentally negotiated the most significant diplomatic breakthrough in human history. I gave a kid a sandwich, and somehow turned it into a military alliance with the most powerful warrior race in this sector. Do you have any idea what you've done? I watched Admiral Keth'moran discussing something with her senior staff while Zira sat on my lap, teaching me Keth'moran words for different types of food. Outside the viewport, more human ships were arriving to join the growing fleet of aliens, creating what looked like an impromptu space conference. Honestly, I said, I haven't got a clue. 3 days later, I found myself standing in what used to be Conference Room C, now renamed the Kane Diplomatic Suite, wearing a uniform that looked like it was designed by someone who'd never heard of the concept of subtle. The Keth'morans had insisted on full military dress for my official appointment as their first human cultural liaison, which apparently came with more gold braid than a marching band and a cape that kept getting caught indoors. This is ridiculous, I muttered, adjusting the ceremonial sash for the 100th time. You look very important, Uncle Marcus, Zira said, grinning up at me. Her English had improved dramatically over the past few days, though she still occasionally lapsed into Keth'moran when she got excited. I haul cargo, sweetheart. I'm about as important as a broken hyperdrive. Aunt Keth'moran says you're the wisest human she's ever met. Your aunt has clearly never met many humans. The ceremony was mercifully brief. Admiral Keth'moran made a speech about cultural bridges and eternal friendship. Ambassador Rodriguez managed to look professionally pleased while probably screaming internally, and I officially became the worst qualified diplomat in galactic history. But here's the thing about accidentally falling into a job. Sometimes you find out you're better at it than you thought. When the Keth'morans asked for my strategic wisdom, on establishing trade agreements, I gave them practical advice from 20 years of dealing with shipping companies and port authorities. When human merchants worried about cultural sensitivity, I told them the same thing I told everyone: treat people decently and don't be an ass. Apparently this passed for diplomatic genius. 6 months later, the Kane Protocol had become standard procedure for first contact situations, and I had somehow become the poster child for human-alien relations. I'd moved into a permanent suite on Nexus Station, which had transformed from a backwater trading post into a major diplomatic hub. My ship, the Sweet Revenge, sat in a place of honor in the main docking bay, fully repaired and upgraded with Keth'moran technology. Not that I had much time for cargo runs anymore. Uncle Marcus, Zira said, bouncing into my office with the boundless energy of a kid who'd discovered chocolate. The Centauri delegation wants to know if you'll mediate their trade dispute with the Rations. Let me guess, I said, looking up from the pile of diplomatic requests on my desk. They want my strategic wisdom? They said they heard you solved the Keth'moran situation with food, so maybe you can solve their problem with food too. I laughed, reaching into my desk drawer for a package of Earth snacks I kept for emergencies. You know what, kid? Maybe they're onto something. Food does seem to fix a lot of problems. As we walked toward the conference room where two alien species were probably glaring at each other over shipping rates and territorial disputes, Zira looked up at me with those big purple eyes. Uncle Marcus? Do you think sharing food really makes you wise? No, sweetheart, I said, straightening my ridiculous cape one more time. I think sharing food makes you human. Everything else is just happy accidents. And if the galaxy wanted to mistake basic human decency for diplomatic brilliance, well, there were worse things to be famous for. Besides, the food at these diplomatic functions was way better than military rations, even if it did come with a side order of interstellar responsibility. Some days I still couldn't believe I'd become a general by being nice to a hungry kid. But looking at Zira, now healthy and happy and calling me family, I figured it was probably the best mistake I'd ever made.